Hello and welcome back to the FSF podcast. I am Tim. I am your host, and this is the reminder that you are watching and or listening to a show that is made by a nerd for all of you nerds. So we're glad to have you here tonight. Now, our guest in the Nerdatorium tonight is an amazing voice actor that has worked on some of the best animes in the business. You've heard him on shows like One Piece, Dragon Ball Super, My Hero Academia, Fire Force, Chainsaw Man, Attack on Titan, and literally there's like 170 credits or some odd credits like that on his IMDb resume. That only cements the fact that this guy is really cool and super talented. So yeah, we're going to talk about all of that kind of stuff tonight. We're going to discuss his beginnings as a voice actor, the process of bringing a character to life, his influences, and life outside of voice acting. So I'm very excited to welcome Derick Snow to the FSF podcast. Welcome to the show, Derick.
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Tim.
Yay!
Good old time. Anime.
Absolutely. I was more excited that you said yes. That's always the trepidation. Anytime I walk up to anybody and meet them, I'm always like, hello, very nervous. Here's my little show. So it's always exciting to me when somebody says yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Listen, life is crazy. I'm so lucky to be a part of like so many weird projects, and I'm just a regular human, and you're just a regular human, but we get to interact in the magical world of nerddom.
It's a fantastic space.
Yeah.
It makes me so happy. So the first question, Derick, I ask every guest who ever comes to the show, and I do this for two reasons. Number one, I like to know what makes people tick and why they do what they do and why they're in their chosen profession. I've always been that way. I've always liked to know why people are the way they are. I've always loved sociology and the study of groups and humans and all that kind of stuff. But secondly, and probably most important, is that I am a big old nerd, and us nerds love a good origin story when it comes to our heroes. So you are the hero of tonight's episode, of tonight's story. So in the story of Derick Snow, what made you say, hey, you know what? I want to be a voice actor?
My family was attacked by giants. No, I was a very loud little child. I needed an outlet. Even before I got into like voice acting, I loved theater. I loved just the creative. There's so many different ways to be creative. I love drawing and painting and performance. My very first show, the very first thing I remember doing was like a school play when I was in maybe kindergarten, like Where the Wild Things Are, and I was the character of like little Max in his funny little outfit. I wouldn't say I was good, but I was very loud, and I didn't let a weird little kid performance stop me. I let that roll on, and no, but really, I mean, I have always sought out a way to find just a positive outlet for myself. When I was a little bit after like elementary school, before high school, I was a little bit of a bit of a lost child looking for something to do. I had too much time on my hands. Technically, I'm Gen X, so like, what do they call us? Latchkey kids at the time.
Hell yeah.
I'd go away from home. I'd literally walk away. This isn't like everybody, but when I was a kid, I befriended some really bad influences, and I started like hopping trains and doing crazy stuff. I really needed a positive outlet. So I found myself in a summer arts program, like middle school, and it kind of changed the direction of where I was going, from little like Dennis the Menace type miscreant to kind of pushing my energy into just performance side. And I realized that was something that really fed my soul. And along the way, a lot of highs and lows, different genres and venues of acting. But about 2014, I found my way into anime-ish in particular, with a show called Noreen, where I was a smaller show, but I was like top 4 cast, I think. Not a big show, but it was a really fun show. And I didn't screw that up, and I kept it going. And here I am.
So I love the fact that you weren't the best actor, but you were really loud. It reminds me of a comment that somebody made. They were talking about singing. It was at church, and they were just said, and they said you don't have to sing good, you just have to be loud.
Yeah. Yeah, I was really grateful. Maybe when I started like veering off into the professional world of acting, I initially toured. I needed a better job. I had a bad boss for a little while, and I
Mhm.
was doing a little bit of commercial acting. But the thing that really got me going is I had a bad boss, and I ended up auditioning for a musical theater touring version of Peter Pan, and it was just the thing I needed to get me away from the 9 to 5, and I felt kind of like a carny. But I had like my audition, I was not from the traditional world of like musical theater where everybody was super hyper prepared, but I
Oh,
could
gotcha.
fake it. I
Okay.
faked it so good. I had that beautiful ignorance that lets you continue in spite of like this mount. If I were trained and I saw the mountain ahead of me, I probably would have been like, good Lord, no, why would I do this to myself? I'm gonna have like 10 years of struggle trying to pay rent. And that, but like I had that beautiful not, I didn't have that vibe, right? So I kept on going, I can do this. And thank goodness, like just the magic of luck and things lining up along the way led me here. Whew, did it.
Yeah, I think that sometimes the best things happen in life because we allow ourselves to be blissfully ignorant. Um, and you just flying by the seat of your pants and go, "Oh, so that's gonna happen? Okay, cool, let's do that." Yeah, so
Yeah.
no, that makes a whole lot of sense to me.
I
Now,
mean, yeah,
what?
sure. Like as an actor, I also struggled and had to work at a gas station between gigs and
Sure.
do the things that we had to do. But once I kind of figured out what was working, I stuck hard to that baby.
Awesome. Okay. So, like a lot of voice actors that I talk to or have talked to over the years, I mean, they all tell us a very similar story of being the loud child, being the child that was always doing something for attention and acting out, not in a bad way per se, but just if there were skits to be put on in the house, they were the ones doing it. They were,
Mm.
but then there was also the discussion about uh, their influences and the people that they saw doing it, and they went, boy, I would like to try to do that. Did you ever have that moment where you saw somebody that either heard somebody on a show or something, or watched somebody on a show and said, "Boy, I'd like to kind of do what they're doing."
I mean, as a kid, watching TV on the UHF channels, flipping around, I remember watching like what is it? The Bugs Bunny and
Yeah.
Merry Melodies and all that stuff. And I
Hmm.
discovered just a little bit of research before the internet of a really cool dude, Mel Blanc.
Yeah.
And once I realized that he was basically the voice of like 40 characters on one show, I was like, wow,
Hmm.
that's the dream. I want to do that. But then like in terms of like say anime, I remember watching Princess Mononoke, which is a beautiful, movie that was in the what was it, the 90s? Yeah. And I remember hearing I was always able to kind of pick out actors. I realized, wait, I think that's Billy Bob Thornton in this role. I never thought about him being that character. That is absolutely fascinating. I would
Sure.
just the idea of voicing something that you don't necessarily look like. And then, of course, I feel like everybody, has Mark Hamill in their hearts, but I'm a shorty and I always considered myself like a little Luke Skywalker type. Once I heard and realized he was, the Joker among many other things, I was like, wow, now
Oh yeah.
that is something that I could really like that. If I were into voiceover, I would love to be able to push my voice in crazy wild ways. And I feel like I voice a lot of not exactly like I voice a lot of high energy characters, I would say, with a few exceptions, like say maybe heck, even Ego from Blue Lock goes crazy from time to time. So maybe
Right.
I've typecast myself as high energy. or One Piece. I mean, everyone on that show, I voiced a few characters from Nezumi, the mouse marine captain, to Big News Morgan's the big bird that was big news. Very subtle, very subtle.
Fantastic. Okay. Now, so let's talk about some of your work and some of the things that you've done over the years. Now, I always like talking to actors and voice actors and writers about process.
Mhm,
Again, this goes back to I like to know what makes you tick. and why you do what you do. So when we talk about the process of bringing a character to life, now some of the actors that I've talked to prefer to just get in the booth and riff. Just they start throwing out voices until they feel like this is the one that's going to land for that character. And then I've also talked to some that need an image and a background, a little bit of a story to go along with the character. Do you have a preference of how you like to develop a character, and if so, what is it?
It does kind of vary depending on the project and process. Sometimes you do get those if you're doing just a traditional cartoon. Sometimes it really helps for them to send an image, and you just kind of. I feel like a lot of other actors, I've taken a lot of improv classes, so I'm always trying to find an interesting angle onto something. And even when just on my off time, I feel like Robin Williams and Mrs. Doubtfire. I'm always pulling just the weirdest voices out of my butt all day. And when I harp on one that's good, I throw it on my little voice app. So I have all these extra characters in my pocket. I was talking about Ego just a little bit earlier. Like, I didn't audition necessarily for that show. Ego, he's the head coach of the Blue Lock program, and he talks like he is so much smarter than everybody else, and he just knows it. I wouldn't say he's like my Derick voice. I get paid to do a lot of voices that are kind of young, like Choji Tomiyama in Windbreaker, or Shinra Kusakabe in Fire Force, or Real Boy Mortier in Black. All these high voices.
Right.
And then there's like the other side of the coin, the depressive Derick side, which that's really easy for me to access. If I'm being honest, it's nice. But I remember, I think I was riffing on a show with Rig, the director of Blue Lock, and we were doing a show called Fruit of Evolution months before that show. And I was riffing in the booth, and I was just telling some weird story about how I have this fluty little voice when I'm happy, and then if I get a little cranky, it gets a little bit lower, my regular baritone. But I was at a drive-through, and something about the voice box makes my voice, it could be mistaken maybe for like a Kathleen Turner or something, nice little. So I'd like a hamburger and a Coke or something, like, and the voice was like, anything else, ma'am? And so I just, yes, I would actually like a large fry, please. And so the large fry voice became Ego. And
Nice.
So I did an audition for it. He brought me in one. He's like, you remember that fry voice? I was like, what are you talking about? But it led to great things. So I don't know. But on the other side, there's a character named Beam, the shark devil in Chainsaw Man. Man, I had some visions in mind for that, even though the first season of Chainsaw Man, I think Beam was on there for maybe 2 minutes of episode 11. But I had auditioned a long time ago for one of the other main characters. And then I got a call back, and then a third call back for one of the characters. And so I cracked out the manga. And so then I started doing research and character development on. And so I had that idea, but then when I found out I got cast for Beam, man, I'd had the whole universe in my head at that point. I'd already kind of know what Beam should be. And so I came in hot, just ready.
Ready to play
no
around.
notes. It was just crazy. And then I held on for 3 more years before the movie came out. I knew exactly what I was doing for that, or at least I had my ideas. Good to be directed, when the director has some ideas,
Sure.
But I was prepared. And then other times I don't know, you just kind of wing it until something pops up, like you're saying with weird voice, like, this guy doesn't sound right. Until it happens. You make the director happy.
Accept the direction. Yeah, I get that. I remember what a couple months back, I sat down with Lori Steele and we talked about Krillin and all that kind of stuff. When we were going through some of her roles, and she talked about that whole process. And she's like, I have a process that I like to use. She's like, and sometimes she's like, that just gets thrown out the window because they're like, hey, while you're here, could you also voice this? And like one of it was like for they wanted to do like be a potato, do the voice of a potato and whatever it was. And she's like, but it was pretty funny to listen to her, go through that, what her process was and everything else.
You never know what's about to happen. One of my early shows, I mean, there was a show called, kind of a smaller anime called Dance with Devils. And I played a character at the time when I did the audition. It's one of those sexy boys, Japanese singing shows. And so I did musical theater. So I came in for the singing audition,
Okay.
and the director was like, "Oh, we already have these, but can you bark like a dog? Like the character has a dog. Can you bark?" I was like, "Rawr, rawr, sure." And so I got cast as the dog, but they didn't know in the English dub they didn't see far enough in advance. Like 3 episodes later, this guy's got 4 songs and he shape shifts and turns into this very beautiful boy, man. And so as soon as I saw that character, I was like, okay, here we go. Yes, and then also barking.
And also
for
barking.
like Dragon Ball Super, that was one of because you never know what you're coming in for. I knew I was booked for the Supreme Kai of the 9th Universe, Ro. So I knew I'd seen a picture of him. So I got that audition, but when I came in, they also had like 3 other characters that we were also recording. So I had to make it unique enough during this tournament of power actors. A character besides the Supreme Kai of the 9th Universe, there's also Rabanra. He's this little red buddy with like a big, colored gem on his head, like a treasure troll. And then this transforming thing, Koitsukai, that turns into like, what do you call it? Like basically a transformer. Amazing, magical. Yeah.
Love it. Okay. So before I jumped in here with you tonight, I was on TikTok, and I was doing a TikTok live, and I was talking to some of the good TikTokians as you do. And I said, okay, well, I've only got a couple more minutes. I got to go do an interview with Derick Snow tonight. And so one of the guys who follows me has actually been on my show before as well. His username is Sub-Ohm Spartan, and he wanted me to ask you this question. And I said, okay, I'll ask Derick that question for you, because it actually ties in kind of pretty closely to the question I just asked you. He said, as a voice actor, what drives you to the job? The story, the plot, or the character?
Well, probably character most of all, because as an actor, I have very little choice. Like, I don't have much power in how the story is told.
Right.
So the power of collaboration as an actor, like I love creating a sincere, believable context to that moment. So I feel like the challenge is always, how do I make my reads like interesting, a little different, something that sounds like me, so it's hard to get recast. And then just the power of character, I think, is most important to me. How about you?
Well, if I were a voice actor, I think that I probably would look at it much the same way, because again, having had an opportunity to talk with so many different actors over the years, like you said, there's very little that you control about the plot, the story, all those things. Yeah, you have your most influence on how you portray the character, and how you would voice the character, and how you would emote that character. So for me, if I was going to look at it and I would think that was how I was going to pick a story, I think that's or a job, I think that's what I would want to look at is, okay, how can I most impact this with the character that I'm able to provide?
Yeah.
I think that's how I would move forward.
Yeah, the acting world is so weird, because I know a lot of actors that have like dream roles. I've
Sure.
never really had that. I love a challenge of just being able to work for as long as possible in a most challenging way, which I think has led to some really interesting characters for me over the years. I think like very rarely do I say, I really want to find a way to audition for this character, because for me, usually that means heartbreak, because as an actor, usually there's like, 10,000 people auditioning for something. So like I give every audition. I audition a lot. Like as an actor, you know, if it's a numbers game, for every 10 auditions, you're maybe booking one thing. So I've booked. I think you looked up 175. I have done about, from my records, about 250 different anime at this point. IMDb is a little behind, or somebody's been deleting stuff. But and then you know, theater and
Potential for sure.
dinner theater and hundreds of other things. And so like just being able to do this for a living is has been an incredible just gift and challenge. That's I'm always looking for a way to not just work, but be happy while I'm doing it. You know, be the best version of me along the way. Yeah,
I
what
think
that
that's
means is like collaborating with really cool people.
mhm.
That has only led to like bigger and crazier things. Lifting up people that I see along the way. Like if I'm doing some other gig or some workshop or something, man, if I hear or see somebody that not only acts well, but like has a good soul, man, I try to bring those people up because before long they're gonna be lifting me up too. That's one of the beautiful things of this industry.
I love that. I use the saying very often that the rising tide floats all boats. So
Mhm.
if you can lift somebody else up now, there's a good chance they're going to lift you up later.
And if you're a
So
jerkmeister, it comes back.
oh, for sure.
So I try not to
For
be.
s- oh, for sure. That you know, being a dick always finds a way to bite you right in the butt, right in the rump. I've seen it a lot over my lifetime where you as the good guy, you may not always win the day, but you're going to win some hearts. And I think
Mhm.
in the long run, for me, I think that's always more important. I'd rather be known as the good guy than the guy who always won.
Now, I'm not here to be an enabler, but yeah, it's good to be a good-hearted human. You get
For sure.
boundaries along the way. You learn one of the weirdest challenges of an actor is learning how to and when to say no in the right ways. Because if you say yes
Mhm.
to everything, you end up making poor choices. So you got like the wisdom is when to say no, and also when to, you know, sometimes you gotta let people live their lives, but at the same time, like interacting and being a good human has been like the thing I think that has led to my greatest amount of success. So yay.
Yeah, that tracks. That makes sense to me. And actually, that's kind of a nice lead into my next question for you. Um, it I think it buttons up real nice to it because, and I'll ask it this way because anime, in my opinion, can always be a little bit over the top and
Mhm,
way it's presented and the way the characters are presented and their use of their powers or abilities. But really, that's also part of the fun of it, you know.
mhm.
Um, but did you ever have a character that kind of made you go, "Really? This is where we're going with this one? That's what we're gonna do?" And
Well, I
how
mean
did you work your way around that?
well, I mean, sometimes you just look if there's something particularly wacky, sometimes you just go, "Oh, anime." I was talking about that wacky fruit of evolution. I voiced this. Oh, I can't even remember his name, but he was like a horny old wizard. And it's great. So there's like, I'm going to, he's very serious, and then he gets randomly horny and blood flies out his nose, and you go, oh, anime, what is this? This is great. You know, it's funny. Some shows are almost like cartoons, and then some. It. I think the beauty of anime is the vast. Sure, there are shonen, and big, like slice of life stuff, but there's so many different genres of storytelling that can be told in the manga anime format. One of my favorite shows was almost the opposite of big heightened stuff. A show called once again kind of a smaller. I'm the lead in lots of tiny shows and a couple of big ones. A great show called Sunny Boy. I voiced a character named Nagara, where he was I love it, a depressive, and I think like the maximum he talked like this was like 4. This was him being excited right here. It was
Okay.
so fun because it was a show that kind of discussed the concepts of depression, but then goes into like a 2001 Space Odyssey, mind bending, just a trip right at like in the middle of the series, and I was like, wow, this is crazy, and that character never crosses the threshold into wacky, which was Just fun. But I love wacky. Don't. I mean, I am. I am wacky. But yeah, on those things, you just kind of Oh, anime. Yeah, I don't. Every opportunity to be weird, I feel like I get called in for those, so I'll take it.
Okay. I I think that actually might be one of my, because I've asked that question before to a couple different actors, but I think that might actually be my favorite response. Oh, anime. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
because
it's
it just
amazing how characters can veer from, like, I love the little chibi side of, like, a really serious show. Like, there's a great show called Windbreaker, where I voiced a character named Choji Tomiyama, and he's, like, manic, and he gets a depression arc. But then, like, randomly in the middle of it, and this isn't an anime, but he's like, "Let's have sushi," and I'm like, "What is I love it." How manic of him. That's very me.
yeah, yeah.
I can relate.
Actually, and kind of realistic too for a lot of people who,
Mhm.
if you're dealing with depression,
Yeah, protags can't be depressed all the time.
yeah, you got to have some sushi in there and make you
Yeah.
smile. So, all right. Now, like I said, and you mentioned IMDb might be a little bit behind. I always call IMDb the wiki of the entertainment world, because it's
I'm so
amazing how
grateful
it.
for all the amazing, like, smarter people than me that add all those credits because they enable me, and I'm very grateful.
Absolutely. And so sometimes it's accurate, and I've also had it be horribly inaccurate and used some information from IMDb one time in a couple interviews where I was like, "Oh, so that was not right. Okay, so very cool. Thanks. We're
My
moving
wife
on."
is randomly on, like, Australian Survivor, her IMDb credit. I'm like, okay, sure.
Cool.
Just some weird things got crossed. One never knows. It's just the power of humans. I think
The
another
power of
funny one is,
IMDb. Yeah.
and not to talk smack about Anime News Network, but it took them like 9 years to get more than like 20 of my credits on there. So somebody's finally doing something.
Hey, maybe
Thanks.
they're just catching up. Maybe,
Yeah.
So yeah, like according to your IMDb currently, I think it's at like right around 170, I think is what they have you at. And like 17 to 20 of those were in 2025 alone. That's a very, very busy schedule for a voice
Yeah.
actor. So you've had a very busy career, especially recently. But with all of that, you also have to find downtime. You have to find ways to relax, ways things away from the anime voiceover world. So how does Derick Snow rest, relax, unwind, and rest that beautiful voice?
Well, to rest my voice, I keep it lubricated, so I drink liquids. But to rest my soul, I've always been I think I started this saying earlier, I'm a bit of an artistic kitty cat. I like to
Hmm.
draw and paint. I went to school for graphic design, but got kind of burned out along the way. So I don't do it for money
Okay.
anymore. I just do it for me. And that actually makes me happy. When people, they see me drawing or sketching or painting, they're like, wow, can I commission something? I'm like, no, I'm going to do this for me. And so I like doing that. Uh, in my earlier life, I loved painting live with bands on stage. Or something about that electric environment of
Oh, that's very
improvisational
cool.
creativity. Yeah, I was making large works during, a concert, and that's a lot of fun to do sometimes. I love going outside. I love walks. I'm a tinkerer. I like making weird little, just weird like audio toys. I make, like, you get like a guitar string and get a guitar pickup and do crazy stuff like that, making your own uh homemade weird inventive guitars. Stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
I
right.
read a little bit. I try to do my best to stay away from the internet if I can help it. It's a bit of a, nightmare.
Bit of a
Uh
time suck and a nightmare. Yeah,
A
getcha.
bit, a bit. But I mean, the magic of what I do, I think you were talking about TikTok. One of my favorite things is being able to interact with people from, their favorite shows that I get to work on. It's like a completely different other side of the coin. As an actor, I'm kind of insular, I feel I put on my little mask of, like, acting and performance, but in my real world, I'm half of an introvert. So, like, as an actor, I do a lot of create, I bring it in, I focus all my energy at, say, like a camera or a microphone,
Sure.
and then I forget about it, kind of. And then once things air, or even a couple of years later on some shows, like Dragon Ball is a gift that keeps giving. Like I did that show quite a few years ago. Like the character, I still pop on for tiny characters, but like it's amazing interacting with people, and so it's almost like a hobby. I love doing like the weird little magical world of conventions and hanging out with
Hmm.
people, talking about stuff. They know way more about these shows than I do, so like
Right.
it's absolutely amazing to like. That's kind of where I learn some of my character lines because they tell it back to me, and it's amazing, like, to see
Oh,
people,
I
like,
said that.
dressed up
Okay,
as
cool.
characters, and my improv starts kicking in, and I start having fun with them, and it's just, like, a great way to burn through a weekend of just hanging out with amazing, weird people, which is like me.
Fantastic. All
Yeah.
right. I have to go deeper into one of your answers here just because I am really kind of curious because I love live music and I've never thought or seen anybody paint during. So like were you like on the stage with the band and like like or were you off to the side or how'd that work? Because
It varied,
so very
in
curious.
a different part of my life before I just like, I'm acting. I was doing a little audio production side, but also painting, and in where I grew up, Tulsa, Oklahoma, there are some really great bands. It's a really interesting like musical city, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Uh, so there's a lot of really cool small, medium-sized venues, which is great, and they had a lot of music festivals. So I would hook up with like several bands, and they'd have like a nice little wing of the stage just for my gigantic 6 feet work, and I'd make something completely inspired by that music. So I'd maybe have my colors picked out, and maybe a little bit. It wasn't just abstract. I love, in general, like, I generally did, like, naturistic settings or the ocean or kinda
Okay.
like some of the symbols that came out of whatever the band
Yeah.
was creating at that moment. So, and I did it for so long, it became quite easy. Like, it was amazing that I could, and I went to schools also doing, like, somebody would be reading a short story, and then I'd do, like, a version of, say, for example, like, The Grinch. I'd do a
Hmm.
big, weird, like, 25-minute version of a painting, like 6 feet tall. The more you do it, it's like anything. It's like riding a bike. The more you do it, the better you get. So I was it's a really fun outlet of, doing that creative side. Yeah.
That the concept for me because is really cool. I can't paint. I can't even draw. So that whole thing is extremely foreign to me. But I love live music and I love seeing live music and the idea of seeing somebody create something because of the inspiration of the environment to me
Mhm.
is a very very cool idea.
Yeah,
And
depending on the band, it's the perfect mood. I don't know if I've ever done it for, like, a death metal band. That would be fascinating. Like
here
folk
is my
music.
depressive
Yeah.
art. So
Yeah,
uh
yeah, perfect. At the end of a death metal, I'd have to, like, jump through the canvas and, like, burn it on fire. Not for
right.
sale.
Love it. All right. So I also have this question again, going back to the what makes you tick, and I call it suggestion time because again, I like to know what you're doing now or what you're thinking and looking at now that helps you be you. So, what are you reading or listening to that you think everybody else should know about?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I I I I listen to a lot of audiobooks, but I feel like sometimes it's for work because it's amazing as a voice actor. You think we're
Yeah.
just like, oh, we're anime boys. I do a lot of work. I don't like to have it all mingled together. So some of my books, I voice some spicier romance novels secretly.
Noise.
Yeah, if you listen hard enough. But so like in terms of what I'm listening to, I love depressive music. I listen to a lot of like Radiohead and Iron and Wine and Nick
Oh yeah.
Drake and uh, so like that good stuff is always on. If there's a band that nobody's ever heard of, that I would like the world to understand. Ooh, there's a fun one. I just got their LP from. There's a Smashing Pumpkins. They have an independent label, Billy Corgan.
Mm-hmm.
They released with another band called Autumn Shade. And man, that's some really good, just the right amount of like almost emo, but folksy and depressive. Delightful.
Where's my? I gotta check that out. Autumn Shade, you said. All right, so you mentioned Iron and Wine, which is a band that I enjoy. Have you ever heard of Calexico?
Yeah. I mean, maybe
So-
I've heard their music, but no, I'll have to.
Because they've done some stuff with Iron and Wine together.
Oh,
but yeah,
cool.
you might want to check them out. Very, very cool. Very similar to Iron and Wine. So yeah, you might want to check them out.
Yeah, I can listen
quite
to
big
that and Postal Service and Decemberists. I love all that weirdly, slightly.
The new pornographers.
Yeah, that's
So-
great stuff too.
Yeah, very cool. All right. Excellent. All right, Derick, we have hit a point in this conversation where I believe it is now time to ask you what I call our silly question. So it's not all that silly. I just like to call it silly. Now I have to build you a bit of a clock to tell you the time on this one because it's just part of the deal. So this question originates because one of our team members here, Kathleen, she was out and about in town with her daughter, and I forget in this part of the story where exactly they were, but somebody asked her daughter this question, but not Kathleen. And Kathleen was like, well, how rude. You should never age out of this question. So that question is, Derick Snow, what's your favorite dinosaur?
Ooh. Oh my goodness. I mean, when I do drawings, I tend to draw the funny little Tyrannosaurus Rex because of his goofy little arms. But if I were a dinosaur, I would want to fly. So probably pterodactyl. His arms aren't goofy enough, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I know. Yeah, those are basic dinosaurs. I understand. A fun dinosaur sounding name is plesiosaur.
There you go. I'm a
I don't know what that looks
fan,
like,
so
but yeah.
The plesiosaurus. Yes. All right. Excellent. All right. Well, Derick, thank you so much for being on the FSF podcast today. Where can our listeners and or viewers, whichever side they're on, go to find out more about you, your work, and whatever you've got coming up next?
Well, my name is hard to spell. Derick, Derick. If you can vaguely remember that, Google. I'm famous enough, thank God, if you misspell Derick, the Derick Snow, you still find me. DerickSnow.com. I'm on the X Twitter. I'm on Insta. I'm on my favorite weird one is TikTok because I think I'm the weirdest. That's my weirdest platform where I'm the goofiest. And yeah, I've got conventions almost every weekend because I mean I just love reaching out to the world. I'm going to let's see, I think in March I'm going to Bangor, Maine. In February I'm going to San Antonio for Valentine's Day. There's always something. I'm going to Manchester, England in a couple of months. Like life is crazy.
Oh, very cool.
I love traveling. It's the dream.
That's fantastic.
If you just scream loud enough, maybe I'll hear you.
Very good. Or I'll make sure that we put some links to your socials down below, and you and make sure that people can be able to find you, follow you, in not a stalkery type way. That seems
We'll
odd.
see.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But we'll make sure we put those down in the show notes down below so that people can find out more about Derick Snow. Now, guys, this also seems like a prime time to remind you that if you are not following the FSF podcast on YouTube, that's like the most important free thing that you can do today. It'll cost you $0, £0, 0 yens, whatever monetary system that you are listening to us from. It is going to cost you 0 of them. So please give our show a like, a follow, whatever you want to call it, a subscription, whatever. It's a free subscription, so it doesn't cost you anything. But doing that helps us ensure that we get more amazing guests like Derick Snow here to have these conversations like you just listened to. So please consider following the show. Pretty please. I'm begging. I could be on my knees. You don't know. I might be, but give us a follow. It helps more than you know. And be sure to check out Derick's work as well. You can find him on all his socials, and we'll put an IMDb link in there as well, so people can see all the shows that you have lent your voice to. So, on behalf of Derick Snow, thank you everyone for listening and or watching the FSF podcast, and may the force be with you as you continue to live long and prosper. Goodbye.
Copyright 2026 FSF Podcast. Reference to any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by FSF Podcast. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@fsfpodcast.com.